What's up, everybody? I'm Dave Kitchen. Welcome to the Swolecast. Just got back from the Planet Fitness. Got some buys, some tries in today. Feeling good. Swung by the Dairy Queen. Got one of those animal cookie blizzards. Super underrated. We got a great show for you today. Guest late round QB. JJ, thanks for joining us, my man.
Thanks for having me, Kitchen. I appreciate it.
Yeah, this is great. Let's go around the horn. We got Mr. Tuttle 05 looking to break his word count record on the show of 100 today. Are we going to do it, Mr. Tuttle 05?
No.
Okay, and over to Davis Maddock, the man that looks like he just walked off the golf course and is probably now 8-tabling something on an illegal poker site. How we doing, Davis?
But never play illegal poker. I'm on global poker, right? Where all you have to do is change your American dollars into sweeps coins, and it's totally legit, Pete. I resent the implication that I would break the law.
Okay, I can't be Kitchen forever. It's exhausting. JJ, what made you agree to come onto this show? That's the question we all want to know.
I don't know. And the thing that I realized after, you asked me, and then the tweet went out earlier today that I would be replacing Kitchen, I realized that I'm like Kitchen's handcuff. What? I'm the Darrington Evans to Kitchen's being Derrick Henry, and that makes me feel even worse. So I don't know why I did this.
And the implication is that hosts don't matter and they're completely replaceable. I think your production's going to be right on par with Kitchen's.
I think the better analogy here is that you're Deion Lewis in a Matt LaFleur offense Kitchen's Deion Lewis in a Matt LaFleur offense getting way too much time on air. And then we finally get somebody that can come in, put the team on its back.
There we go.
I think you're.
I was thinking more Tony Pollard, where the backup is clearly more talented than the overweight starter.
Okay,
that was the direction I was going there.
Wait, does this mean Tuttle's like 2 years ago Chris Hogan? He's just out here getting wind sprints and exercise.
That's all I do.
He just runs those fly routes and then he gets back to the line of scrimmage.
And I'm getting paid to do it, so I'm happy.
So, JJ, the big talk on fantasy Twitter right now, for some reason, or at least it was yesterday, was the San Francisco 49ers backfield. You said you didn't want to argue about it, but it seems like you ended up having to argue about it all day.
Yeah, that's what happens when you tweet about anything these days. Really, so I'm going through my projections, and Raheem Mostert doesn't look bad in my projections. He comes out at like RB20, RB22, something like that. But the problem is, looking at the path to upside for a guy like Mostert, who down the stretch last year was averaging fewer than 2 targets per game. Last season, he only had 2 games where he had a 10% target share or better. And then you look at his ADP and where he's being drafted. I understand where he's being drafted in comparison to other running backs. I just have a hard time drafting him over some of the wide receivers he's going over and being drafted ahead of. So that's really my take, is that, if we look at what happened in the playoffs, of course, he blew up in the NFC Championship game, and he was used heavily in the Super Bowl. But that first game against the Vikings, the divisional round, Tevin Coleman was the starter. Tevin Coleman was the guy who was seeing Raheem Mostert had like 29% of the running back rushes. And then Coleman gets hurt. He has that shoulder injury during the NFC Championship game, and that's when we see Raheem Mostert blow up. And to me, it's just hard to buy into a clear split backfield, or what looks to be like a split backfield, a guy who's not going to see a ton of receiving work, and he's 28 years old. And there were people that were responding to my tweet saying,
a young man's David Johnson.
I want this young up-and-coming running back. No, guys, he's 28. He's older than Tevin Coleman. So to me, the better value is Coleman out of the two.
Now, Davis, you were also in the fray with this argument, battling with some former high-stakes champs. Where do you stand on this issue?
I mean, Mostert's upside, even if he hits it, it's like all touchdown related. Raheem Mostert's not going to go out there and catch 4 passes a game. 4 receptions a game, by the way, might lead the 49ers in receptions per game if things go the way they want it to. So I'm not really interested in Mostert at all. You got to avoid running backs from the running back dead zone. Patented RotoViz and Ben Gretsch strategy. Just noting, you really should not be taking dudes there.
Yeah, and doesn't it feel in general it's kind of like the old Patriots running back principle, where you just take the cheapest one in drafts because we don't know. Tuttle, do you have a San Francisco running back you like? I mean, there's some deep names. There's a rookie We got former Jerick McKinnon. You could go the man's Kyle Juszczyk route. I mean, anything's on the table here.
Yeah, I was going to say, I thought you buried the lead here a little, Pete, and didn't mention that Jerick McKinnon's in the best shape of his life.
He's healthy, bro.
According to a simple Google News search, the 49ers trainer has declared Jerick McKinnon in the best shape of his life.
Do you think we have any viewers that aren't even old enough to remember what Jerick McKinnon's profile looked like?
100%.
Oh, bring up the player
100%.
profiler.
People don't remember that he used to be in Minnesota. Like he was they don't remember the Matt Asiata, Jerick McKinnon backfield split.
Oh,
they're not old enough to remember.
Gosh, that was the most. And people also forget Jerick McKinnon played quarterback in college. I don't know if they remember that.
I believe him and Breida were teammates in college, right? They both went to Georgia Southern, and McKinnon was the quarterback.
Okay, yeah.
I think that's true. One of them could have went to Georgia State though.
I mean, when your best comparable on player profile is LaDainian Tomlinson,
it's a pretty good comp.
It's a decent comp.
JJ, the one name that I have seen, like when I did a post about it yesterday and people kept saying the name JaMycal Hasty to me. Yeah. Is there any validity to this being a good dart throw, or is this just random conjecture?
I mean, I think that the main reason it would be a good dart throw is just situation based more than anything else. Because we've seen guys come from nowhere with Kyle Shanahan in the past and be fantasy relevant in some way. I mean, I've thrown darts and just like picked them up in free agency and some dynasty leagues where he's out there. But my model that I use for running back and wide receiver hates Hasty. He's like a 23rd percentile prospect.
Yeah, because you don't plug Spark Score in.
Yeah, I mean his speed score sucks. It's more his like burst that's strong, which is honestly what you would want in that Shanahan offense. It's sort of like the reason that Mostert works is because they just need that like one cut athletic running back who can just be thrown in there, and that's what they've found success with historically, which is why Jerick McKinnon was pretty attractive in that offense, moving over there. But yeah, Hasty's someone who, in like a dynasty league, he's a nice, flyer on your bench, but he's not someone that I would really target in like a best ball draft.
He was trash in college, right?
Yeah, he was not very, like, that's the thing. My models were like really focused on college production, and he just did not have that.
I just remember I'd play college DFS and be like, nope, never taking JaMycal Hasty.
So, JJ, I feel like the question we always have to now check in on, since things change so fast, where are you at maybe on a percentage of feeling good about us getting a full 16-game NFL season on schedule?
That's a good question. I'd probably put it at like 5 to 10% in terms of a full 16 game.
Wow.
My fear more so is not the tail end of the season, it's the start. I do think that of all sports leagues, the NFL is going to figure it out best because of money and because of how greedy they are too. I think that they'll figure that out.
We're gonna get scab players, bro. We're getting replacement players. They're gonna have to get Bo Levi Mitchell from the CFL to come down and play.
The other thing too is that, like, think about the mentality of that league and the players who play in that league. I mean, you have to be some sort of type of person / athlete to be playing in the NFL in the first place. I mean, it's a violent game, and that's, not to compare what they do on the field to coronavirus, because obviously one is contagious and the other one is not. But I think that it's just a different type of league in the way that they think about these kind of things too. So I'm more worried though on the front end, given what's going on across the country right now, and what could happen in July and August.
It still seems like there's so much confusion across the NFL for various franchises, knowing what the standardized practices that they're supposed to abide by are going to be. You've already heard John Harbaugh talking about, like, well, there's no way we could realistically do this. I think it's going to be such a mess just from that standpoint of being like, oh, who's at a competitive advantage?
So are the head coaches that all vote Republican? Is there an edge because they're just going to be like, look, dude, we're practicing, we're getting our training camps in, it doesn't matter.
But Speaking of coaches, though, too, like, the thing that I feel like everyone is just completely ignoring is that everyone's worried about the health of players. It's the health of the staff.
All the coaches are old. Yeah.
All the coaches are part of the demographic that's been hit hardest by coronavirus. Like, I'm more frightened for the Andy Reids of the world than I am for
So
the
the
players.
Rams have an edge because Sean McVay lifts every day and he's 35 and in great shape.
Right, exactly. Yeah, right.
So
The
Tuttle,
49ers too.
I got to give Tuttle credit. Yesterday, we all got the scare with PGA, the PGA coming out after guys test positive and saying we're holding a major announcement hours before, the tournament's supposed to kick off. Tuttle went on the record. He said it's still going to happen. He proved to be correct. So as the COVID sports forecaster, oracle, where are you, Tuttle, on NFL chances of a full 16-game season?
Man, I haven't put thought into a full 16. Yeah, I don't know. I'm actually more interested in the angle shooting you could provide. So if you're with JJ here and you're thinking it's going to be a shortened season to some extent, there's got to be some angles you can shoot in season-long drafts that are happening right now, right?
Zero RB is extremely ultra mega dead. If it's a 10-game season, it's like literally you should start your draft with 4 decrepit running backs and just build from there for sure.
No. I'm not going to allow that slander because you can spin that either way. You could say the starting running backs are all going to get COVID and then you're going to be, getting scabs off the street that are going to be the perfect zero RB candidates.
So I booked a bet for the NFL season to play 16 games yesterday with one of the Daily Roto subscribers, 3-1. So my $50 to win $150. And I feel like that bet favors me as opposed to favoring, I think 3-1 is fair odds for a 16-game NFL season.
It would be weird if you made a bet that you didn't feel favored you.
Well, sometimes I get backed into a corner and I just end up there's actually an all-time one with Tuttle. There's an all-time one with Tuttle where I think it was about is Jabari Parker starting or something, and there was already the Fantasy Labs tweet he's in the starting lineup, and I was like, no, Tuttle, he isn't, and we booked it, and I was wrong immediately. So
you also end up going in the complete opposite direction that your take was before a moment in time, like the Clyde Edwards-Helaire stuff. You went from Damian, CEH gets drafted, and everyone has a moderate take on CEH, and you're like, RB1. We can't
RB1. We can't afford any moderacy in these in these uncertain times, JJ. It's just not allowed.
That is always the funniest thing when you see the back and forth, people arguing, and you can tell it's headed toward a bet. And it's these two competing forces where it's trying to get a plus EV bet, but also trying to stay logically consistent. And those two things wrestle so hard, and to get those to align up rarely happens.
Right.
So
my whole life.
Speaking of plus EV bets, and if you think there's going to be a shortened season, I had to do something with this on RG yesterday with baseball season being announced. It's easier to do with baseball because the variance is just insane anyways. Yeah. With baseball, you can get a pitcher that goes on a hot streak or something. But I haven't looked. If you're looking at season long bets or future bets for MVP, things like that, take shots on underdogs or long shots.
Yeah.
That's gonna shorten
Daniel
season.
Jones.
Yeah, any sort of shortened season is going to increase the variance, and it's going to make those long shots plus EV bets in the long term.
Yeah, like Drew Lock.
Yeah.
I mean, someone who can go out there and play a high variance style for 8 games, 9 games, 10 games. I mean, in baseball, some of the books have just pulled divisional odds and stuff off because in 60 games, the Tigers could theoretically go on a 13-game win streak or something, just totally randomly and win the AL Central. So in baseball, they're just taking futures out of the market entirely.
Well, the Nationals wouldn't have made the playoffs last year,
right,
in a 60-game season. And it's interesting we'll get back to football. But baseball is interesting in the sense that pitchers, you're only going to have 12 starts max for a starting pitcher. So if they do offer some sort of Cy Young award, just take chances on some long shots.
But even in football, we see these random 8-game snippets. Derrick Henry last year is a perfect example where
you are the soccer Dave on this show.
No, I got to represent Nashville in some way. Yeah. So Derrick Henry last year, I mean, we all understand the running back value argument, right? But last season, that perception. I mean, we know that MVP is about perception more than reality a lot of times.
Yeah, it's totally narrative based,
and it's going to skew towards quarterbacks. But in a situation where last year, we see Derrick Henry do what he did, and we know how people took that and how they said it's the Derrick Henry offense, has nothing to do with Ryan Tannehill's extreme efficiency. But from that standpoint, all of a sudden you could have had realistically a running back, in that short sample, a running back end up being MVP, which we never see.
Yeah. So I feel like we haven't actually had a lot of actionable NFL news. Normally we're starting to get all these, at least training camp, snippets and all of this. JJ, has there been anything that has made you hashtag copyright adjust your ranks at all, or has things remained pretty flat for you?
I haven't really done much in terms of adjusting. I mean, I'll have different rankings like month to month, let's say. So like we'll publish it on FanDuel's social media accounts and whatnot, and people will trash them. And then the next month I'll have different rankings in some way. It's not like I'm getting more information in terms of like what coaches are saying. I'm just doing a little bit more research, or someone's discovering something interesting about a player, and maybe I'll shift a guy up and down a little bit. But right now, it's hard for me to buy into some stuff. Like we've seen like the Rojo versus Keyshawn Vaughn stuff flip back and forth, with a lot of people buying more into Rojo after different articles on like Pewter Report and different Bucks blogs. But stuff like that.
The way he just said Pewter Report was so dismissive of
it was
SC
such a
Nation
pejorative. I love it. It was like sub Bleacher Report. I love it.
Look, I love all the people at Pewter Report. But like realistically, that kind of stuff doesn't really move the needle that dramatically for me. There's information before the draft, for instance. I'm just making this about Keyshawn Vaughn because I always like talking about Keyshawn Vaughn. I think he's an interesting guy.
Legit or a bit Keyshawn Vaughn?
I think he's legit. I think he's legit from the standpoint of he's the right type of bet to make in fantasy football drafts. I actually like him more in redraft leagues than I do in dynasty leagues too. But
I think that's totally rational.
But like pre-draft back in February, Bruce Arians comes out and he has this long quote talking about wanting a 3-down back who can catch passes. And clearly just like trashing Ronald, like just subtweeting Ronald Jones essentially, right? And so what do? They go out in the third round, they draft Keyshawn Vaughn, and that's decent draft capital. People have said they were in a pinch, they were in a bind during the draft, and they reached for Keyshawn Vaughn when they actually had like a 4th or 5th round grade on him. We don't know that to be factual, and I don't really care. They still spent a 3rd round pick to get Vaughn, so he's going to get some sort of shot. And then just given all the information that we know about Bruce Arians and wanting to get that pass catching back, Ronald Jones hasn't been able to catch passes ever. And so to me, that just makes Vaughn a pretty obvious bet where he's being drafted. If he doesn't pan out, it doesn't really matter because the opportunity cost isn't that high.
This is a Ronald Jones show.
It is, but JJ or Davis, I was going to say I appreciate this because what JJ was hinting at is true. Is like Ronald Jones had become cool again as a pick in circles. I like his more underdog, against the world status. So we need JJ to continue pushing this Vaughn narrative. So Rojo is cheaper.
Yeah, we need the thought leaders to create that ADP separation between the two of them. I like to go ahead.
No, I want to know what you love about Ronald Jones. Like, what is it that makes you excited about Ronald Jones?
He's the only Buccaneer, the only running back in their backfield last season who had above like fantasy points per expectation. He was above as opposed to below. He's younger than Keyshawn Vaughn.
Yeah.
And like basically, I think my take would be Keyshawn Vaughn is extremely just a dude, and I don't think running backs matter, but coaches do, and Brady does for sure. Like Brady is going to get frustrated if Keyshawn Vaughn is just like Rex Burkheading his way around when like he knows that Ronald Jones is like the more explosive player.
I agree with that take. Keyshawn Vaughn's like a jack of all trades, master of none type of back, and that's not really
for sure.
That's not really what you look for per se in running or wide receivers. You want guys who like do their job really well. It's very rare to get a guy who can do a lot of different things. But at the same time, like we know that pass catching is so vital to running backs hitting a ceiling, right? And to me, that baseline is absolutely there. I mean, Keyshawn Vaughn had the 3rd highest final season reception share in this class. I mean, he was someone who was seeing work as a receiver. He can do that. A lot of film guys would tout Keyshawn Vaughn as someone who can catch passes out of the backfield well. Ronald Jones hasn't been able to do. He still body catches. I mean, the guy.
There was that quote about like the coaches being like, we can't understand why he uses his hands in such an unnatural way trying to catch the ball.
Yeah, I mean, like I think Ronald Jones is a great and electric between the tackles runner, and he's probably better than Keyshawn Vaughn at doing that. But I don't know if that's what the coaching staff is valuing, and they shouldn't value. I mean, that's
that doesn't matter that much.
Yeah, that's a replaceable asset. So to me, that's really what I'm looking at now. Now that Vaughn is being drafted after Ronald Jones a lot, I just am gobbling up more and more because
I like it. I like it less. I liked Ronald Jones in like the 9th round a lot better.
That made a lot more sense. I agree with you there. Yeah.
Tuttle, you seem to me like more of a Dare Ngubawale guy, as a guy that there'd be like a Monday night showdown. You would have like 150 of Dare just going all in JD McKissick lock button style.
Man, is he
was a Badger though.
What's his role going to be? Is he going to still be the third down guy?
I mean, here's the thing. If he has a role, Keyshawn and Ronald Jones are both dead. Like they're both they're just totally dust for fantasy.
You don't like 3 backfield or 3 RB backfields?
Three RB backfield with a 48-year-old quarterback who could just dust off at any moment, you know?
I'm going to check in on the YouTube chat. Diesel Legend says, do you guys check this chat during the show? There are literally, all caps, dozens of us. They were feeling neglected. Jim Gibbs says, more actual football talk in 15 minutes than the last 10 episodes with Kitchen combined.
That's a fact.
Yeah. I always felt like I was guilty for taking the Swolecast away from football talk, but I think we figured out the variable here. It's really Kitchen who derails it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously.
All right, let's talk some Scott Fishbowl. The chatter is heating up. Avatars are being made. Profit is being made.
Profit is being made.
JJ, do you have a Teespring site you're launching for your own SFB wear coming out soon that you'd like to announce now?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm trying to profit as much as possible off of this charity. Yeah.
But are you going to do your own Scott Fishbowl ranks? Do you get that deep into the weeds with it?
So here's my, Davis actually asked me for the Late Round Podcast mailbag this week. I didn't answer it, Davis. I'm sorry. I already recorded the episode. I try to avoid Davis questions, but I always
try and ask you one. Cause I know in the past when I've put stuff out there, like sometimes you'll randomly get like 15 good questions. And then sometimes literally no one will ask you anything interesting.
This week was very much like very basic and dumb. I shouldn't say dumb. I don't want to talk down on people. Very basic and like boring questions, or questions that are like, I mean, my podcasts are like 15 to 20 minutes each. Right. And like answering some of those questions would have been like an entire podcast. It's like, no, I'm not doing that. But Davis asked me a question of like what my take was on like SFB strategy or something like that. Like if it,
just like basic strategy relative to a 12-team PPR league.
And so my take, of course, like I'm a huge strategy nerd with fantasy. Like that's what I basically do most of, right? But I think in a situation like SFB, it matters a lot less because the teams there's an extreme amount of variance. Number one, like once you're in the playoffs, you obviously just need guys to hit in certain weeks. But there's a lot of variance just in general throughout, given the amount of teams that are in there. And it's not like your player pool, like in DFS, you can build off of anything. So to me, it's very much like you have to be fortunate to draft some of the right players.
And you draft so many guys that like you'll probably get 2 good guys to pick up off the waiver wire all year, and you'll have to spend all your fab on them.
Yeah. And like to me, I cannot stand when people say just draft the right players and it'll be fine, because we all know that strategy is there in order to increase your probability of hitting on those players, right? And you can say that to a degree with SFB. One thing I will say with the scoring's fun. There's no doubt about that. But the scoring also is just not very predictive, right? The way that it's set up, whether it's you're losing points for a pick 6, which is relatively random. First downs aren't very sticky year over year. Like there's obviously it correlates to like volume and stuff, but there's just stuff like that where the scoring is fun. It's entertaining. It gets people interested in strategizing in different ways. And I'm not saying don't strategize. I just think that in a situation in a league like this, it's very much going to come down to did you hit on the league winners? Did that happen? And
So,
you gotta
Yeah,
go
for
from there.
sure.
Would you say then I should be drafting for upside in this draft?
I would draft for upside. Yeah. I would draft for upside.
Okay.
Pete, I have a question for you. So you and I, we both pick at 4. I think
With
there's
Shane
a very
Battier.
with Shane Battier, NBA champion. I think there's like a very, very good chance that we have to decide if we want to take Lamar there or not. And there's some very clear regression stuff with Lamar. So like obviously he is not going to throw for what was it? 9.6% of his passes last season turned into touchdowns. And there again is some risk that they just choose not to run him as often. So, that's not particularly great stuff. Just as like thinking of how he can access his ceiling. Would you feel skittish at all about taking Lamar at 4 in this format?
So, I don't think I would. I do think, my personal preference would obviously be to get McCaffrey or Barkley.
I would prefer Mahomes, I think, in this format. Yeah.
So RotoViz put out their SFB projections, and Lamar Jackson is at the top with Mahomes just a little bit behind. It's actually a ton of quarterbacks as far as raw points. Breeze is up there because of there's
completes like 75% of his passes.
Yeah. But to answer your question, no, I wouldn't have a problem taking Lamar Jackson there. Also, because, and I'm sure Mr. Late Round QB agrees, I'm not going to have any shares of Lamar in almost any leagues this year.
Right.
So to actually maybe have an opportunity to draft him without a ton of opportunity cost is kind of attractive to me.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm drafting at the 102, and I'm basically like just getting either CMC or Barkley, like whatever's there. But I think that's right. Like the other thing with like leagues like this is that every draft is completely different, obviously.
For sure.
And that really, you have to really read the room. And I almost slightly regret being closer to an end and not being more in the middle, only because it's a lot easier to be reactive when you're drafting at like 4 to 8 or 9 rather than being 1 or 2 or 11 and 12.
4 was clearly the GTO spot to request because it wasn't going to get overloaded and you weren't going to get stuck with anyone bad.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely a good spot. I do think though, like strategically, I'm more so looking at, and I'll be honest, I'm probably like a 500 team with SFB. Like historically, it's not like my teams have been like unbelievable, which probably shows that no one should be listening to me right now and what I'm saying about strategy and stuff. But I do think that like looking at ADP, because there's a lot of mock drafts that are going on and stuff, I'm mostly going to be more concerned about looking at ADP and knowing where like tiers are being drafted and stuff, because a lot of the drafts that I'm seeing, wide receivers dropping even further than you would expect. So
far. Yeah.
And so you can get like Tyler Lockett in like the 8th round. And it's like, okay, there's no reason for me then to get Julio Jones in the 2nd round or something when I know that I can get that kind of value late, because obviously the point advantage is being stretched across more rounds, making that early round wide receiver pick less valuable.
Tuttle, are you in Scott Fishbowl?
Oh, no.
Okay.
He's not in the cool
thanks
kids
for
club.
asking.
Yeah, no, I wasn't sure what your draft slot was. If you
Tuttle for sure has never applied for it either.
Oh, 0 shot.
This is Drew Dinkmeyer has, like, every year he's been like, he's never done it because he's never applied. He just was, and this is his first year doing it, and he won't tell us if he applied or if Scott invited him. I like to think he applied.
It's the opposite of Davis applying for the blue check mark.
We JJ, we have a question in the chat. Someone, R. Einstein, he wants a target in rounds 10 plus. He needs those late flyers, please. His family is starving, JJ. Give him an SFBX sleeper so they can eat.
SFBX sleeper?
Yeah.
Late. I mean, I think, the 10th round is still going to be filled with like basically like 8th rounders, right? In like a typical league. Yeah. I still, so like the research that I've done, especially this offseason, has really confirmed that you're not going to be able to get league winning wide receivers late in drafts. It's not what happens. It's not to say that going robust RB can't work, but I do think that a lot of the stuff that like RotoViz has come out with on win rate and lineup structures and construction and what it shows with the wide receiver position and teams going wide receiver heavy do well in terms of win rate. I do think that all of that makes a lot of sense from what I've researched and stuff. So I would lean more running back if I'm looking for like a league winner late, right? And that's what we've seen is more running backs. They're usually not handcuffs either. So I'm not like going to tout like a Darrington Evans or something like that, someone who would step in with, or Tony Pollard, someone who would step in with an injury. I mean, I think it's gonna be fun to say this. So I'm gonna say Duke Johnson.
Oh, I like it. Make the case. Make the Duke case.
So the Duke case is typically what we've seen from breakout running backs historically, or guys who have far exceeded their ADP that have been drafted after round 5. They've been pass catchers. They've been in ambiguous backfields. They're not typically handcuffs. And age usually isn't that big of a deal for the running back position. It's a much bigger deal at wide receiver. And so for Duke, you have somewhat of an ambiguous backfield because David Johnson's being drafted in the 4th, 5th, whatever. So he's not, he's not a handcuff as a result of that either. And obviously Duke is a pass catcher, and there's a lot of question marks around who's going to be catching passes for Houston anyway this year. And how consistent those guys are going to be on the field. So I don't think Duke is going to be someone who's like, an RB1, RB2 this season, but I think that he's someone who you can easily pinpoint and say he's going to exceed value. I think Tariq Cohen is kind of in the same boat where, the dude is coming off probably the quietest 100+ target season in NFL history last year. And
he could just run hot on efficiency because he does get targeted down the field. 2018, He ran mega hot on efficiency, had like a 70-yard touchdown, a couple other really long passes, and he just literally had none of those last year, but they could easily return.
Exactly. So I really like those are the guys that at least will at a baseline, if they're healthy, be able to exceed ADP expectation. But there's more upside than people realize with those kinds of players. And then wide receiver, I'm going to stick with the Bears. I really like Anthony Miller as a 3rd-year breakout this year.
Agreed.
Well, kind of on that line of thought, you've been doing your late round podcast series on breakout candidates. Tell us where you get your ideas, JJ.
I just DM Denny Carter and he just feeds me the info.
I've heard about this thread that you're in with Reeves and Thorman and how you guys just kind of all funnel Denny's takes into your work is basically how it goes.
It's true. Yeah. Denny's the mastermind. He sort of is the guy who just runs the fantasy football industry, especially fantasy Twitter, just in the background.
Yeah. Just undercover.
Go. Yeah.
But what are some of your more interesting findings that you found through that process?
Yeah. So, I did it on running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends. I'm not going to do a quarterback one because I started looking at the data and I just couldn't find anything. There's just nothing. I'm not going to try to put something together that doesn't make sense and doesn't have really strong findings. So no quarterback one. Usually you have an outlier season for quarterbacks that end up really exceeding ADP anyway. But with wide receivers, usually they were young. So what I did was I looked at, and this goes for all 3 of those positions. I looked at the overall ADP for every player since 2011 versus the amount of points that those guys scored. And then I charted that and found a trend line. Anyone above that trend line was exceeding ADP. Anyone below it was not. And I looked at guys who far exceeded ADP and deemed them the breakout guys, the guys who were drafted after round 5 and exceeded ADP by 100 or more points in that season. And then I looked at that subset and I said, what do these guys have in common? At the wide receiver position, what I found was interesting is that usually a lot of these wide receivers had fairly high target shares the season before they broke out. And by fairly high, I mean like 16 to 17%. So it wasn't like these guys were, bottom of the barrel, 3rd or 4th string wide receivers on their team the year prior. It's that they were good, and volume obviously and targets are an indicator that someone's good. But they were good one year and then they just blew up the next. So guys like Deontay Johnson make a lot of sense this year. There's a lot of, Mecole Hardman's kind of interesting, but didn't have the volume last year. So I'm not as on him as a result of that. And obviously Sammy's in the way a little bit there. So that was one thing that was interesting with the wide receiver position. They're also usually young. So go for those 2nd-year guys, especially more than the 3rd-year guys.
Okay, I want to throw out all the rookies who were disappointing last year, and I want you guys to tell me if you think that they can break out this year.
Okay.
So the first one is obvious. It's N'Keal Harry, first round draft pick, only played in 7 games, 24 targets, 2 touchdowns. Pete, can N'Keal Harry break out?
I'm a big N'Keal Harry truther, and again, what like JJ mentioned, when we see these breakouts at wide receiver, they're traditionally second-year breakouts. They have good pedigree. He didn't check the huge volume thing, but there's also a lot of change going on in that offense. And he didn't play a ton last year because of injury. So in that case, I think we want to fall back on the college profile in the draft capital. And you look around there and it's like, other than Edelman, who's going to command targets consistently in that offense? So I'm definitely on N'Keal Harry. No one wants to draft him. You can get him super cheap.
Okay. Andy Isabella, JJ.
My answer is no, even though I loved Isabella coming out, like truther status, Andy Isabella. Probability is working against them. Usually guys who didn't have like a significant injury, which is why like N'Keal Harry or like Paris Campbell, you can make the argument for because they were banged up last year. Andy Isabella just couldn't find the field. I understand when he did, he was really efficient. But guys during their rookie year, if they were relatively productive, that's a good sign. Guys who weren't, it's not that great of a sign. You know, like Darrell Henderson, there's some Damian Harris, like there's something going on there. If they didn't produce their rookie year. You know, so, I think, you know, obviously the cost matters. Like, I don't think Darrell Henderson's like a bad pick this year just because of cost, but you know, the probability of them actually panning out is not as great as people would think.
So this is my working theory as an Isabella truther. He played at the University of Massachusetts and weighed like 180 pounds probably. Maybe he just needed a year to like get in an NFL building, like learn about how football takes place when it's being done like a professional. Cause like, let's be honest, you know, guys who are playing in the SEC, guys who are playing in the Big 12, they're getting basically the same level of training, nutrition, and everything as NFL players are. I don't think it's that way for the University of Massachusetts Minutemen. So that's my take, is that he just literally was not ready to play in the NFL, but he might be ready now.
Yeah, my other take I input draft capital into my models, and we all look at draft capital. Like if a guy goes in the second round versus the fourth, of course we're going to favor the guy that goes in the second round. The problem is it only takes one team for that draft capital to be really inflated. And my fear with Isabella is that he would have been a 4th rounder if not for the Cardinals.
For the Cardinals.
Like the Cardinals just loved him, and then they drafted him way too high. And that's my fear with Isabella too.
Tuttle, Mecole Hardman and Andy Isabella, is there a specific format of fantasy you prefer them in?
Yeah, I think I would go with best ball on that one.
Yeah, I tend to agree.
All in best ball, all out in weekly management.
My only Andy Isabella take is that for somebody that can run so fast, he kind of looks weird running.
He's got a weird gait for sure.
He does.
I think it's because he's so short too, which kind of makes it's so weird to see him with all those pads on.
But we had that one play last year where he went for like 90 yards, and it just
against the 49ers in week 15.
So definitely a pants off moment there.
I like Tuttle saying he's not going to have any season long takes. Unbeknownst to us, he's been grinding Andy Isabella film here on the low.
Well, you didn't let me get my N'Keal Harry take in, and then
let's get it.
I was just gonna say an upgrade at QB should help. So that's all I was going to say.
Okay, Miles Boykin. They don't have the third tight end anymore. They're likely going to and I think their plan would be to play Chris Moore and Willie Snead. The plan has got to be to play those guys way less.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm gonna pass to JJ on that one.
I thought Boykin was a little bit overrated coming in because he was not that big.
Not a market share guy.
Yeah, not a big producer, but had the athleticism, so people are going to get excited about that. Draft capital is not out of this world great for him. And to me, Devin Duvernay has a better outlook this season than Miles Boykin does.
Devin Duvernay truthers, they abound. It's like a very weird niche of football Twitter, but like there are Devin Duvernay people out there.
Yeah, for sure.
JJ, so you are an on-the-record Yinzer Steeler apologist. I feel like their position groups have been kind of responsible for some debate in fantasy within the wide receiver cohort with Deontay Johnson, maybe James Washington's getting forgotten, and then also the backfield. We got someone in the chat screaming for you to say McFarland is going to be a running back breakout. Who are your two favorite Steelers, one wide receiver and one running back, since you got lots of options to choose from?
That's a good question. I still think James Conner is actually at a decent value right now because we know the upside's there and we know that he can be a top 5 guy. The injury concerns are certainly there. And I do worry that McFarland's going to end up being stealing more work through the air than we would want him to. But McFarland, realistically, like, I don't think this is that hot of a take, but he could easily be the most talented running back on that team. It's not like James Conner's just like out of this world great running back. So McFarland's, I don't think he's a terrible dart throw. I think like SFB is actually an interesting format to take a guy like McFarland in case he becomes something more significant than we think. But I would lean James Conner as a just better value right now. And then I am part of the Deontay Johnson truther club. I know Davis is not.
It's disgusting.
I don't think it's out of the question that Deontay Johnson could outscore Juju this year.
It's literally against my moral code to even entertain this.
But I do think Juju is what odds did I put it at?
Remember I think you said plus 400 for Johnson to straight up outscore.
Yeah, I think that
seems
fair.
About right.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. But like Deontay Johnson, you know, people look at his like profile in college and his final season wasn't that great. The season before that was way better. But then he also had that like the kick return juice, which is always something that you look for in these guys who maybe didn't, you know, Mecole Hardman is a similar way where like they didn't look great from a production profile standpoint, but they had that additional piece to their game that shows that they're athletic and they're good and their teams want them on the field. But Deontay Johnson, man, I mean, this is a rookie class that was out of this world good last year. And right. Deontay Johnson led that class with a clown show at quarterback in receptions. That speaks volumes, I think, to how good he might end up being. I think it's good for Juju, though, too. So I'm going to go Deontay Johnson and James Conner.
Okay. And I know you said you weren't going to do a pod deep dive, or actually I need to say DD. I've been following some of these new day traders in the market, and I couldn't tell at first if they were saying they were doing their due diligence or a deep dive. I think it's deep dive, guys. Have you guys seen this, DD?
I have not.
Okay. Yeah. If you want to start shilling a stock, you need to let people know that you did a DD on it first. That way they know it's legit.
Yeah. Then they I'm in.
We got to get Davis's stock tip of the day.
Yeah. Is it
KTOV? I'm not buying anything right now, dude. It's not terrifying out there.
It's not pretty out there.
Yeah. Sorry, where was I going with this? Oh, yeah. So you're not doing a QB DD, but do you have a personal favorite? I think we're all trying to chase. Can we hit on a Mahomes, a Lamar Jackson, you know, after the 9th or 10th round? You are Mr. LRQB. Who do you think? We know that those guys are outliers. It's probably not going to happen again. But who do you think could be the closest version of that this year?
I think there are 3 guys that you would want to target late who have the rushing juice that we look for. You know, the market's become really efficient. This is part of the reason why I think like you could realistically go middle round QB now, because middle round is now like,
dude, I'm team middle round QB, and like all these like were you in the action? Yeah, like I'm like 7th round. I'm like, I'm just taking Dak or Kyler or Deshaun, whoever. For sure.
Yeah, because this is the first year I can remember where the market's become efficient, and we're also seeing finally these rushing quarterbacks be able to be really efficient through the air too. So those guys are clearly giving you that edge up until probably to Josh Allen. I draw the line.
Like those guys are beating QB 12 on a weekly basis by enough for it to matter.
Right. And they're doing it like their arms are better than these other quarterbacks where historically
it's not like Tebow or Terrell Pryor
or even like Cam Newton, right? Where like Cam Newton's best season in fantasy, his best season in fantasy was the crazy touchdown rate MVP season. But like he didn't do that very consistently. So I think there's 3 guys that are kind of intriguing who have the rushing juice and maybe they get lucky through the air. One of them, since I am filling in for Soccer Dave, I'm going to go with Ryan Tannehill for one of them.
You have gone full Soccer Dave.
He's full heel.
My Titans, I need to give Tannehill some love. I mean, look, Tannehill was the QB3 after becoming starter last year for Tennessee. He's going to regress, but his ranking right now and his ADP is like QB 19. And it's kind of odd. Like 5 years ago, we would have seen Ryan Tannehill be like QB7 in ADP.
For he 8th round, lock it up. Yeah,
right.
Like where
right,
Baker went last year.
Exactly. But people are recognizing regression. They understand regression, and it's going to hit for Tannehill. But you know what? We know that Tannehill can get it done with his legs. He's athletic. Did you guys know that Ryan Tannehill once played wide receiver? I don't know if you guys heard about that.
Yeah, people forget. Yeah,
people pretty wild.
Fins up.
So I think Tannehill is still intriguing, but two other guys, I don't mind throwing darts at Joe Burrow. Also sneaky rushing upside, and then Daniel Jones, just given what he did last year.
Yeah, Daniel Jones to me seems like the guy who could throw up a QB4 season, and actually be a league winner.
Yeah, I mean, and you've got weapons there for Daniel Jones. So you have weapons for Cincinnati as well, which is. I think Burrow is going a bit overlooked. I wouldn't be shocked if he ends up as a QB1.
Yeah, it is weird that like last year I was the guy overdrafting Kyler Murray trying to chase that Mahomes breakout. Little did I know it was Lamar Jackson going in the same round. Just missed that one. But it does seem like Burrow as an unknown kind of commodity in the NFL. Normally people are more eager to take a shot on that kind of black box upside, but it doesn't seem like there's a ton of hype for him.
I agree. I mean, like even Mahomes, the year that he broke out, like I wasn't as high in Mahomes as I should have been for sure. But even that was just like you just want to buy into that ambiguity. Like you just I don't care what the downside is for these quarterbacks because we know they're replaceable. So to your point, I mean, why not? It just doesn't matter enough to not buy into that.
Well, I feel like this is the perfect transition to the hit segment on the Swolecast, legit or a bit. I mean, you just said it right there. You might be trending toward middle round QB. So legit or a bit, late round QB.
It's always been a bit.
I saw someone asking you like if you were going to update your ebook, and you're like, no way, dude.
Yeah, it's true. No one should be buying that ebook anyway. I think I tweeted last week how bad that thing is, man. But I mean, you can still go late round QB. I'm just noting that like if some of those middle round guys drop a little bit, they're kind of in prime position to be values.
Yeah. And I think you've said this before too, the reason that you can also wait on QB is also the reason you can take shots on QB because it's replaceable. You can go to the waiver wire. If you take a big swing on Daniel Jones and you miss, whatever, you're going to be able to go plug and play whoever.
Yeah. I mean, look, so when I wrote the ebook in like 2012, the QB 12 was being drafted in round 8. Okay. Today, the QB like 6 gets drafted in round 8. So if back then I was saying, yeah, get a quarterback in round 8, that was what late was back then, right? And so like if the opportunity cost equation said, sure, it doesn't matter at that point in your draft, then why should it matter now? It shouldn't matter now. I mean, you should be able to get guys in the 8th or 9th round if you really feel like they have that like QB1 upside, which I think this year finally we have guys in that area who do have that upside. Historically, middle round quarterbacks have been atrocious. Do
you hate yourself for starting the process of ruining the market?
No, I don't even, I mean, why would, no, I don't. But I also don't think I was like, I don't think that you
literally wrote the book, dude.
Yeah. But like it took enough. I mean, I spent countless hours and blood, sweat, and tears arguing with people with
arguing with people who are like, but I want to take Tony Romo in the 6th round.
God, if you go back and look at my Twitter archives, like I mean, I used to tweet just constantly in like 2014 about why people were dumb drafting guys.
Yeah, me too. I'm so over that.
Yeah. What is your guys' weird? So like my biggest I would say skeleton in my Twitter closet is back in 2009 when I got in it. I once got into a really long argument with Jameel Hill about Kobe Bryant versus LeBron James, and she blocked me.
Wow. Bill Barnwell has me blocked because I mocked his position that Odell Beckham could win Rookie of the Year.
That's pretty good.
You haven't gotten unblocked?
Never got unblocked.
Do you ever find, so like I love discovering when people have blocked me, like having no idea that like I love it even more so when it's just like this random accountant or something that just like must have just despised one of my takes that I'd never had talked to before, and that
happens to me a lot.
But one of the best ones, I go and look, someone's like, oh, check out what Mark Ingram said, and I couldn't see it because he blocked me. And I still have no idea. I've never conversed with Mark Ingram on Twitter, but he has me blocked.
You started doing, I love the, you did the video recently for FanDuel where you respond to the mean comments to your rankings. What's the meanest comment you've gotten about one of your rankings so far?
I mean, a lot of it's just like, like the FUs, you're an idiot kind of stuff. No one's like threatened my family, fortunately, that I had Tom Brady ranked as the QB8 or something like that. I mean, it's usually like, fortunately, I mean, I'll tell you what though, the worst people on this planet comment on fantasy football posts on Instagram. Like, period.
Those are the counselors' people.
It's bad out there, man. It's rough.
Okay, I got a good one for us to end on here. Who is the Dante Pettis of like so obviously a terrible pick in the top 100, and only the worst people are into making that pick?
He's just trying to squeeze this narrative in while Soccer Dave's not here.
I know. I think I have mine.
I want to look at a list of players so that I don't miss someone.
Sorry, say the prompt again, Davis. I heard the Dante Pettis
guy going in the top 100 who everyone universally, like 90% of people agree, like this is so terrible, you should not be doing this. But the 10% are so persistent that the ADP never switches, and the guy just always goes.
Are you focused on wide receiver here?
It doesn't matter. It could be either.
Oh, okay. Because I think wide receiver is pretty efficient.
Yeah, I mean, mine is Le'Veon Bell. Like I just see I see basically like no outs to him getting there. That's the one for me.
I see more outs for him than Leonard Fournette.
Both. Yeah, I think both Leonard Fournette and whoever I just said, Le'Veon Bell. Both of them.
I'll make an argument for Le'Veon Bell for you. Not that I'm like actively trying to draft Le'Veon Bell.
Adam Gase is a good coach, bro. Open your eyes.
He's gonna see pretty crazy market share numbers in that backfield. The Jets only scored 25 offensive touchdowns last year. Teams that generally do that have seen an increase of like 5 to 10 touchdowns the following year. They beefed up the offensive line a little bit. So I can at least see like the problem with like the Bells and the Fournettes of the world is it's really hard to see a path to them being like a top 6 running back in fantasy.
They just would have to catch 100 passes or just score every 1 yard touchdown.
Yeah, like you need Leonard Fournette's 2019 season to happen for these guys, which it's hard to envision like an 18% target share, especially for Fournette could see that be cut in half this year. So I'll go with Fournette of those two, but I think Bell's a pretty decent pick there.
Tuttle, how many fantasy drafts have you done this offseason?
Over under 1.5.
Let me count here.
It's got to be under
0.
Yeah. No mock drafts, no best ball drafts, dynasty startups for Mr. Tuttle 05.
Tuttle was grinding League of Legends when all of us were doing dynasty startups.
Yeah, I mean, I'm writing League of Legends content 7 days a week now. Come on.
Yeah.
Get on my level.
JJ, did you get into the esports DFS at all?
No, like, so I wish that Overwatch was bigger, man, because I'm all about some Overwatch.
JJ grinds Overwatch.
I do. I love Overwatch. It's so fun. So if Overwatch becomes big, you guys know who to go to.
Do they have a good competitive scene?
Yeah, it's not bad. I mean, I'm not super into it from from watching and stuff, but I play all the time.
It seems like it would be harder to score though.
It would be harder because it's so team oriented.
Yeah, it's not like it's like not a super kill based game because there's healers and stuff.
Yeah, you have roles and stuff. Yeah, it would be a lot harder to translate that to a DFS game for sure.
JJ, did FanDuel try to ask you to do any esports content for them? Like
anytime my thing is anytime we have to cover something else, I bring someone who knows that stuff on to do that stuff for me, so I can just focus on football.
There you go. JJ sticks to football.
Yeah, man. Of course.
Well, we appreciate you coming on. I would say you hit all the Soccer Dave notes perfectly. We got Ryan Tannehill. We got Derrick Henry in there, even a Dante Pettis mention. I mean, I think you did it, man.
Yeah, I mean, I got to go to the gym right now. I got to Planet Fitness really quick to get it in, but I appreciate you guys
get a good back and buy session. Obviously don't wear a mask and stop by Dairy Queen on the way.
Need to absolutely take the selfie, put it on Twitter, let everyone know. Yeah,
there we go.
You love to see it.
All right, guys, this has been the Swolecast every Thursday at noon Eastern for Mr. Tuttle 05. for Mr. Davis Maddock, for our guests, JJ Zacharyson. I am Soccer Dave, and this has been the Swolecast.